Are you familiar with the Creole Mutiny? Or some people call it the Creole revolt? Let me give you a little Black History nugget for Black History Month. Okay? In 1841, a slave ship by the name of the Creole was transporting enslaved Africans from Richmond, Virginia, down to the coast of New Orleans, the port of New Orleans, to sell these human beings, okay? Richmond, Virginia was part of the Upper South, tobacco territory. Once the tobacco industry started slowing down, these slave owners started selling off black people for property, for profit, because they were considered their property, right? And it's part of the largest forced migration in American history. If you go back and watch my video on the bigger Trail of Tears, you'll see what I mean. Black people were moved from the Upper South to the Lower South for the better part of 20 to 30 years, right? And it involved millions of up to 1 million people, all right? And they moved these people from the Upper South to the Lower South after they removed the Native Americans out of the Deep South, right? Sent them off to Oklahoma, right? And that's called the Trail of Tears. Well, this one was a bigger Trail of Tears. Now, if you were unlucky, you were forced to march from the Upper South down to places like Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana. That's if you were unlucky. If you were, quote unquote, lucky, they either put you on a ship, like this story I'm going to tell you about, or they packed you in a rail car, like cattle, and forced you to be transported to these places to work in the cotton fields, because that's what this was about. After they cleared the Native Americans out, they repopulated that area with black people to pick cotton and cut sugarcane, okay? Things of that nature. Well, in 1841, their plan was to do just that for a group of African Americans, right? They put them on this ship, the Creole, right? And it had up to 130 African Americans, a handful of white people, the ship's captain, the crew, and a couple of slave traders who put these deals together, right? These were the people that are the ones that forced these people to be sold, okay? They were going to make a profit off of these human beings. Well, the problem is they didn't know what they were dealing with, because this ship had a man by the name of Madison, Washington, who should be one of your personal favorites if you love the idea of freedom. Because Madison, Washington organized a revolt with, I think it was 18 other enslaved people on that ship. They organized to do what needed to be done, which was to take the ship over. They killed the captain, injured some of the crew members, and forced one of the white people who knew navigation skills to take them to freedom. They originally wanted to go to Liberia, West Africa, because they knew that Liberia was a place that formerly enslaved African Americans had founded off the coast of West Africa, and they knew they would be accepted as free people there. But the crew person was like, listen, we don't have we were only going to New Orleans. We don't have the resources to go that far. But one of the other enslaved people were like, wait a minute. Okay, if you can't take us there, we know that Britain just recently outlawed slavery and will accept formerly enslaved people to be free. Take us to one of those Caribbean islands. We want to go to Nassau, which is my last name, by the way. and we want to go now. So these people forced this man to navigate the ship to the Bahamas. And once they were in Bahamian waters, they were considered free. But the ambassador or the emissary for the United States in the Bahamas basically said, hey, look, that's our property. We want our property back. Britain was like, no. And once they landed on our shores, our controlled shores, the Bahamas is part of the British Empire. We're not giving them back. They ended up having a trial because of the killing of the enslaved captain, but the captain of the ship. But the British courts found that that mutiny was lawful under the circumstances. All right, and just to show you how humane these people were, they did not kill all the white people on the ship because the ship's captain had his family on there, his kids, his wife, and some of those other slave traders. They had their families on there. They didn't harm them. They only wanted freedom. They only wanted to do what was necessary to get to freedom, right? And Madison, Washington was instrumental in planning this thing and carrying out this plan, all right? So there's a reason why you don't hear about stories like this. This was a successful revolt. This was a successful insurrection. And all of those 130 something African Americans were freed, except 5 of them chose not to be free. 5 of them stayed on the ship. 5 of them subjected themselves to a lifetime of servitude by being taken to New Orleans for that resale, right? And my understanding is, I think 3 of them were women, and I think 2 of them were children. My assumption is that those kids belong to at least 1 or 2 of those women. It's troubling because some folks would prefer slavery to freedom. But that's for another day. These stories that I'm telling you are not just history. These stories can be a guideline for how we choose to live in the present to shape our future. So let's think about the wonderful things that Mr. Madison Washington and his cohorts did to gain the privilege or the right to be free. All right? Thank you.